You are now listening to Talk Your Jits podcast.
Welcome back to the Talk Your Jits podcast. This podcast is, as the name implies, all about Jiu Jitsu. I'm your host, Lamar Smith, and today's guest is a second-degree black belt who runs Brazilian top team Playing Style in Playing Style, New Hampshire. Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Spero.
Hey, Lamar. How are you today?
Good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. Happy holidays. Hope you had a good day off yesterday. I don't know if you celebrate Christmas, but I take advantage of every holiday.
Oh, no, I enjoyed the day off, man. Enjoyed the day off. So kids are happy. I'm happy. My holiday was good, man. So
yeah, that's true.
All right, man. Let's without further ado, man, let's get the ball rolling. If you want to introduce yourself again, by all means, and let's hear about your jiu-jitsu journey.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me. First off, my name is Dave Spero. I am second-degree black belt at Brazilian top team under Professor Daniel Pizzoni and Joel Amaral. I've been doing jiu-jitsu now since I was 27, so 18 years. It was with Brazilian top team from blue belt on, and it's, well, not technically, we can get into that later. I've trained under a couple of different schools prior to finding my home at Brazilian top team. I actually own a gym. I own Brazilian top team Plastow, so I started a gym at purple belt level and brought in some black belts to teach classes there and made my way up through the ranks. But we're celebrating our 13th year at school, so good times, good stuff.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So open a school at purple belt. Like how was that? Like how did you how did you get into jiu-jitsu?
So I just got my second degree on my black belt about 2 weeks ago, and they always make you do a speech in front of the up and coming belts, the white belts, blue belts. We had over 150 people there that were testing, and so they really put you on the spot. So what I'm going to tell you, I pretty much said in my speech. At 27 years old, I was fresh off a divorce. I had, an empty house, nothing to look forward to at home. And I had followed the UFC back when I was 15 and 16. You saw those bare knuckle brawls in the cage. And I said, oh, that looks like fun. And then I saw that one fight where the guy got his teeth knocked out again. And I said, I don't want to do that. That's not fun anymore. But I was impressed by that. I said, who's that little skinny guy in the karate uniform? And it was, of course, Hoist Gracie. Now, looking then, I was impressed because I'm not the biggest guy in the world. I was not the most athletically gifted guy in the world. And I said, if this little guy can, go in there and with these monsters and, choke them out. And I said, this looks interesting. Put it off to the side, at 16, fast forward to, 27, and I had nothing to do. I was walking by a big sign in the middle of a town called Derry. It said Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. And so I just put two and two together. I said, Gracie UFC, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Let's stop in. So I walked inside, talked a little bit with the owner, and my jiu-jitsu journey started there. And when I was doing jiu-jitsu, I ended up meeting a girl. It was always a girl, right? Started bringing her to the classes because I wanted to share with her my excitement for jiu-jitsu. She ended up starting a relationship with another person at the gym behind my back, which sucks, right? Never good. That person was a professional fighter. I was not a fighter at all. A couple street fights, but nothing, whatever. So we don't have to get into the, details of it, but long story short, I was forced to leave the school. The owner and the professors didn't want to do anything to, solve this problem. Said, hey, he's one of our fighters, find a new school. That got me upset. And I said, all right, I'm going to learn how to fight and I'm going to smash this guy. That's the only reason I got into jiu-jitsu. I got in for the wrong reasons.
That's the first.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe people got in for that. I don't know, but I'm the first to hear of it, at least from my angle.
Yeah.
So, I found another school down the road, another Gracie Jiu-Jitsu school, but it was a different Gracie. And I'm like, I'm confused, right? And then like the family's big. he said, I want to fight. I want to be an MMA fighter. And the guy said he was at the time a purple belt under Cesar Gracie, who I don't know if you're familiar with. He teaches the Diaz brothers. He's out in California. But so he's like, I have access to Nick and Nate Diaz and, Jake Shields and all these people. And I said, okay, cool. Like, teach me how to fight. So he's like, well, you got to learn jiu-jitsu first. So started on that journey there. I met one of my best training partners. He's in the UFC right now. His name's Calvin Cater. Lifelong friends. From then on, still good friends to this day. He was the guy that strapped the belt around my waist at his fight promotion, which was such an honor to have one of my best buddies do that. But before we get into that, back up. So I'm training with Calvin. I see this guy fighting. He's doing well. I said, I want to do this. Got my blue belt at this school under a gentleman by the name of Roger Wu. Roger at the time started at the first school I started at and left for his own reason. Got my blue belt through him. And then he was like, I don't know, man. I've been doing jiu-jitsu now. He was a brown belt for 12 or 13 years, like a long time. And he's like, I can't get my black belt. I keep jumping school to school. He's having fallen outs or whatever with this. It's not my place to judge. It was personal reasons. And he goes, maybe I should hang it up. And I'm like, don't do that. You can't do that. Like, you're my professor. Then, where am I going to get my black belt from? And I started looking around for other schools in the area that weren't Gracie affiliated. And we found Brazilian Top Team in Boston, which is about 40 minutes from my location. And I said, go check out, Brazilian Top Team. They seem like a pretty cool school. They seem pretty well-rounded. Murillo Bustamante's the founder. At the time I was following Pride Fighting. And, Murillo was, one of the top heavyweights or light heavyweights. So he started going there. He became they accepted him to BTT, which, ended up making me part of BTT, by association.
Right.
Got my purple belt through Roger. He had his own little thing up in New Hampshire in Londonderry. Wasn't official BTT school yet. And I said, you know what? All the stuff I didn't like about the previous schools I went through, I'm never going to do that. I want to own my own school. I'm never going to do that. I'm going to do the best of what I like of these schools, and I'm going to add my own flavor to it. So I talked to Roger. I said, hey, want to open my own school, want your blessing. I said, I want you to come in and teach. I think at the time he got his black belt for BTT. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I'll definitely do that. So I ended up getting a loan. I did, the research in the neighborhood and the demographics and average income and traffic patterns. I did all this research, found a great spot, still there to this day, and got a loan and ended up, just going all in. Like, hey, let's do it. I'm a gym owner, and you get these really weird, ideas of, oh, it's going to be glorious and people are going to come to your school and fight. And it's going to be magnificent. People are going to bow down to you. Really, you're the greatest. And it's not like that at all. Gym ownership. It's one of the hardest things, man. And I have some friends that have started it and they're out now. They're out of business. So I know some people have started gyms too that I'm not friends with. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to sit back and eat the popcorn like Michael Jackson in that GIF, watching, they're out of business or they're not doing well. And I'm like, everybody, you might be a black belt in jiu-jitsu or, MMA fighter. It doesn't make you a black belt in business. And that's
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So, so my jiu-jitsu journey from Roger was purple. I said, you know what? I have a gym now. Let's take advantage of the fact that I put all this money into a gym. Let's make it a BTT gym. So I talked to Roger's professor, who's now my professor, Professor Daniel. I said, Professor Daniel, I want to make an affiliate school with BTT Boston. And, he set it up. He talked to the other people within the business. We signed a contract. Pros and cons. You get this, you don't get this. It's the pluses and minuses of benefits of being an affiliate. And I've been an affiliate with them for 12 of the 13 years. And I've been training down at BTT Boston, and I said, I want to get my black belt through you guys. It's, from a business perspective, it makes more sense to go, as close to the source as I can. Right. So,
right.
Murillo and Mario Bustamante and Mario Sperry founded BTT. There's Professor Joel, who's Daniel's professor. I believe he got his through Murillo. Murillo went all up to I think it's Roger Gracie. Is it Roger? I don't remember. Carlson Gracie. So the closer I can get, the better. So I had a bit of a falling out with Roger on that. I didn't have him teach at the school anymore. I was bringing in other black belts from BTT. One of them, Hanan Borges, world champion, IBJJF champion. He was a BTT guy at the time. I brought him in. And so from then on, it just went full bore. Now, opening a gym at a purple belt level, I got a lot of haters, a lot of people online, talking crap. Purple belt shouldn't open gyms. Should only be black belts. The old school people, the new school people, like, what has he done? And by always surrounding myself with these high level black belts, it's it's hard to dispel the legitimacy of the gym. We had many champions come out of there. We've got a couple of guys that started in my gym that are either at the UFC or close to UFC level. We've got 6. We got 6 amateur title belts, local title belts. So I mean, from an MMA perspective, we're well. From a jiu-jitsu perspective, we're amazing, right? So it continues to grow. And that's once I got in with Professor Daniel and BTT Boston, my belt level from purple to black was all straight from Daniel. So it's been a long journey. And the last thing I said in my speech was, it's a wonderful journey. I left it at that. You know what I mean? And it just dropped and walked off. So yeah.
So Mike drop, walked off stage.
There's nothing else to say at that point, right?
Right. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Especially open up a school at purple belt, and it's, I don't know what it is about I guess you want to say toxic side of like jiu-jitsu when it comes to communities. Like people, they gatekeep for no reason. Like if you are able to open a school at blue belt or purple belt, there shouldn't be no rule saying that you can't. I feel like if you earned if you earned your purple belt, you have some type of qualifications to teach jiu-jitsu at that point.
Yeah, no, I agree with that to a point. And because I've been doing it so long now, I've seen so many blue and purple belts walk in and out of the gym. Mostly blue. They get the blue belt blues and bounce. But I'll say, looking back, like if you look at where I was at purple belt and you look at where I am at black belt, my level of detail is 1,000 times better, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Details. Purple belt, I think, with the right guidance, if you're a purple belt and you're going solo and you have no path to your black belt, you're like, hey, I'm just going to open up a gym and I'll watch YouTube videos and get better from there. I'm gonna balk on that one. But I mean, if you've got good guidance and you've got a good professor or a good lineage behind you that's constantly pushing you to get better, and you're evolving yourself, yeah, I would say. Or if you're bringing in, let me back up. If you're a blue belt in jiu-jitsu and you open a school and you bring in high-level people to teach at that school, purple, brown, black, whatever, right? People that know what they're doing. I don't necessarily agree that a blue belt would give you the best teaching alone. He needs a good support system around him.
Right.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm dancing on that line. I can't give you a definite yes or no answer, but I mean, it worked for me. Will it work for everybody? I can't say.
Right. No, I mean, yeah, like you said, it takes that village to be able to, run something like that, especially like you said, especially at purple belt, because me, I got my black belt earlier. Well, no, I was say earlier this year, last month. Was it last month? Yeah, last month. Everything's just going by so fast, and it's like I've been training for 6.5 years. So people look at that like, how you got your belt, your black belt way too early. I was like, what's considered way too early? Like, yeah, granted, there's people that's, brown belts or purple belts, like you said, for like 10, 15 years. But I'm like, that ain't got nothing to do with me. There's no, rules saying that, you have to be training for 10 plus years to get your next belt or so on and so forth. It's just how much you put in, how much work you put in. And if your, instructor sees that, obviously they're going to rank you, so It was just so weird with that, man.
First off, congratulations on your black belt. You're already
Thank
in the
you.
upper echelon of people that don't ever get to their black belt, right? You're in the 0.03% or whatever it is.
Right.
Second, I'll say whether you graduate early, late, or whatever, I compare it to college. Some people finish college early because they put in more work, they do more credits, they do more hours, they're qualified, they're doing the thing. I look at it in that sense, right? And then some people stay back a grade. Maybe they got to do summer school. It takes a little longer to get to their degree. You know what I mean? So I don't ever question timeline. I think IBJJF has a good timeline as far as they want to make something structured because all these schools are all over the place. But then, like I look at BJ Penn. I mean, he's going into these IBJJF tournaments at one belt below and smashing the people above him, to get to his
right.
point. So you go in a blue belt and smash all the purple belts. I mean, how do you deny him at that point, right?
Right.
But also for me, and I say this to my students, like it's not just competition. Competition plays a big part in belt promotion, and most of my students don't compete. And I don't make it, okay, you guys aren't going to get your blue belt or your purple belt, whatever, if you don't compete. But it gives you a good litmus test because what happens is when you're training with the same people day in and day out, they know your tricks. Oh, Joe Schmo likes the triangle. I'm just going to block that the whole match. But when you go into a tournament, these people don't know you. They don't know your style unless you're all over the internet. So if you're having success with people that don't understand your style, your system, your moves, that's a good litmus test for me to be like, okay, he went in. And I have one kid, his name's Jack, phenomenal jiu-jitsu guy, triangle guy for sure. First tournament went in, 11 people in the tournament, beat every one of them with a triangle choke. Every one of them. He's a 0-tip blue belt against 4-tip tattered blue belts, right? So for me, I'm like, okay, he's really good at the triangle choke. People knew it was coming watching the match, couldn't stop the triangle choke. And he's beating guys that are tattered blue belts with this triangle choke. And then he went to Nogi and did the same thing with the same group of people. So how do you rank that? Like, do you go, okay, do we put him at purple belt? Or do we go, okay, he's a one-trick pony. He needs more time. Let's give him like 2 stripes, right? And then see how his game progresses. As a coach, I'd be like, hey, listen, you have a great triangle, but one of these days you're going to find somebody that's going to stop that.
Right.
You're going to be able to rely on other stuff, right?
Right.
So jiu-jitsu is so weird as far as belting, time, a lot of it's attitude, teamwork, respect, time on the mat, right? We have our system, we log in and it captures the hour you spent or the hour and a half you spent on the mat. So from an analytics perspective, it's easy for me to pull that, when it's belt test time and do tests that way. But even myself, like I don't do belt testing the way old school BTT would do their belt testing, where they'd have a ceremony in June and a ceremony in December. So every 6 months, I change my system because my software that's in place for my school allows me, it alerts me, hey, so-and-so's, just passed the threshold for attendance for their belt, for their tip or whatever. And that would pop into my mind now and say, okay, now let's start looking at him or her and see, okay, they got the attendance. Do they have the attitude? Are they competing? What else are they doing? So I promote people all year, whether it's, 3 months in, 2 weeks in, whatever, based on that analytics, because the analytics don't lie. And so that does 2 things. Number one, for the Americans out there that don't like to wait for anything, it keeps them guessing, okay, when's my next one? When's my next one? It's like, not, oh, I got to wait till June. Oh, I got to wait till December. No, it's not like that. And number 2, it gets them excited because they can see when they log in, amount of hours remaining to next belt. So it keeps them excited as well.
Okay. And what program is that?
Gym Desk.
Gym Desk? Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that.
Very cool. Small program, not a lot of money. From a business perspective, the rates on transactional rates are low compared to some of the other companies that I've used, and I've switched 4 or 5 times within the 13 years. But as far as like easy to navigate, easy to learn, I was on Kicksite for forever. I loved them, but they changed their system and made it impossible to pull. Like, I'm big on analytics and reporting. My primary job is technology. So for me, like, if I can see the numbers don't lie. If I can see the details don't lie. So pull the spreadsheet together. Gym desk is a lot easier to handle.
Yeah. But yeah, we're that same way, man. When it comes to I guess you want to say promoting and ranking and stuff like that. Because I do know I've heard a lot of schools they'll do like a bulking, like every 6 months or so on and so forth. But us, like, yeah, if you're showing up to class, on time, obviously tuition paid, you're busting your hump, we're going to reward you for that. But yeah, but you do get those people that like, am I getting striped this month, or am I getting my belt this month? Blah blah blah, and it's like, we don't know. Like, like do you like? Well, what makes you feel like you should be ready? Oh yeah, I can roll with anybody and tap anybody. Ooh, okay, but what are you showing to show that you're ready for your next rank? Like you said, how was your your team ethic? How are you on the mats? How are you handling yourself when if the instructor given something, like how are you reacting to that? You know what I'm saying? Are you just over there doing your own thing? Are you rolling it when you're supposed to be drilling? Like, all that stuff kind of plays into a factor, but
yeah,
we done.
It's crazy. The jiu-jitsu is such a weird sport. I love it, but it's man, it's changed my lifestyle so much. I've been so involved in it from an early age. I look at these kids now, like my son started at 4 and he's just turned 11 a couple of days ago, and I'm like, you have such an advantage. You have no idea, you're so flexible. Like you're teaching your body these movements that I started at 27, that you started at 4, The new generation is going to be ridiculous.
Yeah. And I look at my daughter that same way. She, she started training earlier this year, and she just took to it, man, like a duck out of water, just boom. To the point where she was helping me run kids class.
That's cool.
Like, I'm like, hey, let's get it rocking. She'll get them warmed up, and we run our drills, and she'll get them ready for class. And it's just like, dang, man, if I was able to start when you started, I'd be man, I'm telling you, like, I would be out here wrecking. But it's fun watching her grow into the sport early that I fell in love with, and I'm excited to see where she goes with that, because we don't have we had opened up another 2 different locations. Unfortunately, our home gym had to close down, and the first thing she asked is like, "Are we still doing jiu-jitsu, Daddy?" I'm like,
Nice.
"Yeah, we still doing jiu-jitsu." And she's like, "Oh, okay, because we ain't been to H2O in a while, so I just wanted to make sure." I was like, "No, we get it together. We don't have no kids classes yet, but she's still out there. She's still trying to do what she can. So it's fun,
That's
man.
awesome.
It's exciting."
Yeah, that's awesome. And kudos to you for continuing. A lot of people get so shut down because things don't go their way, and it's the whole David Goggins mentality, right? Suck it up.
Yeah,
or even Jocko, right? I always show this Jocko video to my students when they bitch and complain, the good video. You ever see a video?
I might have.
Just type in Jocko and then good on YouTube. And the premise of it is, when things go wrong, when things aren't going your way, when things are bad, you're always going to find some good within it, right? So, got tapped out, good. You learned. Got an injury, good. You have more time to focus on the mental aspect. Didn't he's saying how he was in the SEAL, so didn't get the high speed gear you wanted, good. We have more time to get better at the things that we needed the high speed gear for, right? So when my students get bombed, or when I'm not at the belt I want to be at, I always remind them of that video. That whole there's always going to be some good out of everything. So for you,
every situation,
find that good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it's a great mentality to have, because I love that my instructor kind of distilled that into me, and my other my training partner who got we both got our black belts last month, but he wasn't afraid to show us, I guess you want to say, like the dark side of jiu-jitsu when it comes to like businesses and stuff like that, because it's going to happen. You're going to get those moments where, like, yeah, your school is going to be bustling. You got new bodies on the mat every, seem like every day 2 or 3 people walk in, and then you blink and it's like your 4 regulars are there.
Right.
Or so it's like, don't get discouraged because, you don't have a lot of bodies on the mat. Gyms take time and, a lot of patience to grow. Unfortunately, it's not like, like you said, like you open that door, you got like 100 people eager and, foaming at the mouth trying to get into your gym, which would be nice, but you don't. So, you have to build slowly. So it's been one of those, like, eye-opening moments. Like, okay, like if we want this to work, we got to put that work in.
I never thought I would spend so much money on marketing. Marketing is, I'm spending $3,000 easy a month on marketing, and I've tried so many different marketing companies, and I've had one I've had pretty good luck with, but the first 7 or 8 years, I'm like, oh, we'll do it by word of mouth, right? And I was never really, I was able to get to a specific threshold in attendance, but never plateau that threshold. My goal, in order for me to stop working my real job, is 200 students, which might not seem a lot to some of your viewers out there, but for me, that's what I can comfortably lean on and be like, okay, I don't have to work, other jobs to support this, because right now the gym isn't something that I'm like, oh, I can retire on this income. It's not going to happen, especially when COVID hit and things got, set back 4 or 5 steps and during that rebuilding process. So for me, the height of my attendance was like 115 students. And that only happened when I got marketing and decided to do, click funneling and working with Facebook and Instagram ads and, having, I make my own website now because the people that did my website it was something less than desired. But I have full control of my website now, which is great. And I can take things off at, moment's notice, which I couldn't do before. It required an email and it would take time. And I need things done. Like the gym life moves so fast. So I need things done immediately, but thankfully good marketing company now. I get, an app with leads that I can contact as soon as they click for, bookings, and no issues with that. And I'm hoping we can get back up to that 110, 115 mark. This year wasn't a good year. I can be completely transparent with your viewers out there. The economy is not awesome right now, as everybody knows. We're all feeling that. And so jiu-jitsu is a luxury for a lot of people, not a necessity. So if they have to choose between, filling their gas tank up for a month or, doing the jiu-jitsu, like, tuition, they're going to pick their gas tank, right? Unfortunately, that's the realities of life. So I'm going to continue to grind and continue to do my thing. And I have some great people along the way. I've got people that have been with me since I've opened. I've got people that have been with me since I have a black belt that's with me now that we were training partners coming up, with Roger and that team, who followed me when I opened the gym. This guy due for his first degree on his black belt next December. But we've got some great loyalty, right? And it's like, how do you get the people that would jump to stay, right? And I don't believe it's about sucking them into contracts and, long-term contracts. I think a year or 6-month contract is acceptable, because if I'm going to commit my time to you as a professor and commit my knowledge and my skill and my time away from my family to you, I expect that same commitment back. But I've had schools kind of lock me into 2 and 3 year contracts, and I'm like, not going to do that.
No, that's crazy. No, we don't do contracts either, man, because life happens. Like you said, like you may come into the gym like, I believe I can do 6 months. Lock you in for 6 months, and then the next day is like, boom, something pops up where you can't. Then it's like a whole nother debacle with that. So it's like, if we just do month to month right now.
Thankfully, Lamar, we do month to month too. It's a little more expensive, but we have good flexible contracts. So when life does happen, like if kids want to play another sport, we allow them to suspend the contract for 3 months at a time. The 3 months gets prorated and added on. So they do a full year of payments, but they can just, like, if the kid wants to play football, it's 3 months out of the year, right? September, October, November. So those 3 months, instead of getting pulled tuition, they get pulled a processing fee, which is like less than 20% of their contract to stay on. Or if like it's an excuse and they just don't want to do it anymore, they can get out of that contract early by paying a cancellation fee, which the cancellation fee is almost the amount of the tuition. So it's kind of a moot point. Your hands are washed. But I have employees, I have people that I have to pay in the back end, payroll and administrators and things of that nature that I don't do. I don't touch any of that, and I need to justify their pay. So I need to get something in return. If you're going to make her go through all the paperwork and write everything out and cancel and file with the company that processes and all that stuff, it needs to be justified. But we do have class cards too, right? So if you don't want to commit, you can buy 10 visits and they don't expire for a year. So you have basically 10 visits in 365 days, which I hope you get, right? I hope you're that committed.
Yeah.
So there's no contract at that point. You just deduct and then you reload it and deduct and reload it. So I get that.
Yeah.
If you're injured, that's another story. If you're injured, we cancel your contract, no questions asked. As long as the doctor's note, we don't rope you into anything. You're hurt, you're hurt, man. Like, that's life. Life happens. You got to take care of a loved one. Somebody's sick. I get that, right? But if it's like, man, I'm bored, I want to go play Pokemon cards. Hey, you're going to pay me for my time.
Exactly. And, you know, it's crazy. Like when I talk to some people that's been to like, schools, and you don't hear that a lot. You'd be surprised the things that we find normal in jiu-jitsu, people's never heard of. So it's like, like, for example, I was reading this Reddit post, and I guess the student there posted the contract that he signed with the school, and they, he had to pay for promotions, he had to pay for stripes, he had to pay for so much other stuff just to be able to train. And I'm like, that's more common than, it's scary how common that is, but it's like, man, that's crazy.
We don't do that. We've never done it. I've considered doing it because the economy is so bad right now, and I'm like, every little bit helps, but we haven't done it. We haven't implemented it. We never charge for promotions. We never charge for your belts. We never charge for tips. I feel that the tuition should cover that. Right. Although if you look at it again from a school perspective, like a collegiate perspective, you have to pay for your books, you have to pay for your material. I don't agree with that. So I don't charge for that stuff. We charge late fees, obviously, if your check bounces, right? Because I'm getting charged on my end. I'm just giving you that charge back. But promotions and stuff like that, we don't do. I always felt it was nickel and dime. And I think if I'm your first school and you leave and go to another school that does that, you're in for a rude awakening, because the majority of the schools around my area do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was just like, I look at stuff like that, and then I look at, me training, and I was like, dude, that would be so much money if I have to pay for, per strike, per belt, per ranking. It's like, man, that's more than tuition you paying a month. I mean, you paying it pay out yearly. So, you
can start charging for attendance, right? If they show up, just take it out of their bank account, they punch you in. They get mad.
A service fee every time you walk on the mats. Yeah.
So bad.
Like, I was just here, but you left though. You left.
Yeah.
You left out the door, man. So you gotta pay again.
Yeah.
Gotta pay the toll again.
When we test, I don't want to get too political, but like the other schools within my organization charge for that stuff, and I get it, right? Because they're in high rent areas, or high, it's expensive, right? Thankfully, like, I bought my building, I own my building. Okay. I don't need to recover that stuff. It's paid for. I don't owe anything on it. But there's a lot of burden for school owners that they have to pay rent or mortgage or whatever it is. For me, it's a condo, right? So I pay condo fees every month. I pay the taxes, right? And I pay utilities, but that's it, and insurance. So if you cover that, then it's the ancillary stuff like Comcast cable and processing fees, your application fees, equipment that breaks, things of that nature. It's all these little things that tend to add up, because you have your set budget. Then you have, little Johnny broke the bag. You got to go buy a new one. He was hanging off of it. It bent, right? So, those little thick bags. So it's those things that, or the toilet backed up, right? So you got to get a Roto-Rooter guy in there for $1,000. It's like, those are the things that bite you in the butt if you don't budget properly for it. So
right.
I can understand where people will look for extra funds. I'm in a position where I don't need that. And I love what I do. That's really why I'm there. It's not to get rich, because you're not going to get rich owning a gym unless you start doing that nickel and dime stuff.
Right. Yeah. I'm the same way, man. I love this sport. It's like as soon as I got started into it and I drank the Kool-Aid and got hooked. So yeah, I do it for the love. I'm not like, it would be, yeah, obviously everyone wants to run a successful school and be able to like you said, live off of what you do and doing jujitsu. But realistically, it don't always happen that way unless you get, as you said, like 200 people on your mats every day. But yeah, I'm fine with the few people that we have. We get 6 people on the mats is a good day. Yeah, we get 2 people on the mats is a good day. As long as someone's showing up on these mats, I'm happy.
That's awesome.
So
yeah, I remember we started with 10,
mm-hmm.
and there were times where I'm like, man, I hope I can afford my bills this month. Like there were days where I'm like, man, I got to find an extra job or I got to do some side work to pay my bills this month. So I'm really thankful that I made it. And I always heard if you can make it past the 5-year mark, you're good. So every
Mm-hmm.
year up until year 5, it was like, oh man, if I can just do it for one more year, And just something in my head was like, keep going, keep pushing, and people will come. And when you're around long enough, like Denzel Washington said, it was the best. He goes, you hang around the barbershop long enough, sooner or later you're gonna get a haircut, right? So
Right.
or learn to cut hair. I think it's learn to cut hair. It's true, right? If you hang around in business long enough, you're gonna figure it out. You're gonna figure out how to run it, right? And you're gonna pick up things along the way. I've trained at so many other schools. I mean, top level schools, and I'm there for the training, right? But I'm not just there for the training. I'm there to learn the teaching mentality. There to learn their back end systems. I've been everywhere. I trained with BJ Penn in Hawaii. I've trained with Henry Hooft, with the Black Zillions back in their heyday down in Boca. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's Kamaru Usman and Tehran Sponge and Santiago and who else was there? Alistair Overeem, Rashad Evans. Sick group of guys, right? But
Mm-hmm.
and I can't hang with those guys. Eddie Alvarez, Michael Johnson. I sent my pros down there to hang with them. Meanwhile, I'm in the back. I'm training, but I'm watching the instructors, how they control a room of 50 plus professional fighters. I'm looking
Yeah.
at their back end systems when they walk in. I'm looking at the layout of the gym. I'm looking at the flow, right? Because the gym flow is very important. They're smart. They had a regular gym in the front, and they would have the mom and pops and grandmas and everybody else, lifting weights and running the ellipticals or whatever. And then they would put all the Neanderthals in the back, right? There'd be a cage and a boxing ring and the mats all in the back. You almost couldn't see it when you came in. So the mom and pops would keep the business afloat. And I don't think the pro fighters pay it. I think they got, it's like typical, manager gym fee, like if you fight. And these are all
Mm-hmm.
guys UFC or Bellator. Then the gym and the coaches get a cut of that, right? So they don't pay month to month; they pay per fight. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
cool model, and it's something I would love to emulate. But it's for me when I train at these locations, it's an education for me, and that's how I look at it. I don't look at it as, oh, I'm going to be a better fighter. At the time, I was a fighter, but for me, I was
Mm-hmm.
more business focused because when you start, no offense, when you start MMA or jiu-jitsu at 27, you're not going to the UFC. Let's be real, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I've had 8 cage fights, and from 27 to 40, I retired at 42. I'm 45 now, and they were all amateur fights, right? It's like I'm not gonna. Why go pro if I'm gonna, do nothing with it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in New Hampshire, pro and amateur, only difference is knees to the face and elbows to the face, and time. 2 extra minutes on the clock. So for us,
Right.
it's as close as you're going to get to doing it at a pro level. And I've had people ask me to go pro, like guys my age that are like, come on, let's do a pro fight. And, I'm so broken right now. Like I need a knee replacement, my left knee. I'm actually going to get stem cells in New York in a couple of months to see if that regrows the cartilage. And if it does, I might come back to it. But for right now, man, I've been so hindered on my growth as far as from a physical perspective that, I can only focus on getting better mentally.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've had that conversation with a couple people because I've obviously been doing jujitsu. I do love MMA. I was taking lessons with one of the striking coaches that I know, and people's like, so you when you get in the cage, I'm like, I'm not. Like, like it's not like you said, I'm 36. I'm not gonna be able to, I'm not gonna, Joe's not gonna come, I'm not Joe, but Dana's not gonna come knocking on my door, at my age, like, hey, you want a contract. No, that's just like you said, let's just be realistic. And being an admin, you don't make money. So
not if you do it right.
Right. Right. So like it's a bigger risk for me to do so. I have a family, I have just a school to run, I have to take care of them as well. So as fun as it may sound on paper, yeah, but you got to be, you got to look at the reality's eyes. Like, that's stupid. That's so stupid for me to do that right now at all, really. So it's like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Like, oh man, you should, man, you'll do fine. Yeah, maybe. But, just one lucky kick and, I'm out of here,
The first 10 years of my MMA career, I fought with zero health insurance. You want to talk about crazy? I had no health insurance, man. I was a bricklayer. I was working for my dad's construction company, and there's no health insurance. I didn't have health insurance. So that, you want to talk about crazy, one broken bone or, thankfully I've never broken a bone in any of my fights. The worst injuries I've ever had were training for my fights. I broke my neck training with one of my blue belts who spiked me on my head. And I didn't realize my neck was broke till I couldn't turn it. Like the next day it was completely stiff, and went to the doctor. Doctor's like, oh, you just got a stiff neck, take some painkillers. And I went to my chiropractor who he works for the Devil Rays, the Patriots, and the Bruins. He's like, I want to take some extra x-rays. And he found like 2 cracked vertebrae in my neck. And I was scheduled to fight a month later. And so can you imagine if I went in with a broken neck and I got spiked again, right?
Oh, man, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Right. So we would, but I have a scar in my mouth trying to turn my wheelchair, right? And it's like, so he found it, and, thankfully I was able to heal from that. Thankfully, not a lot of concussions. I did get knocked out in one of my fights, albeit it was illegal. I won the fight, not how you want to win a fight, but I was playing the game, right? In a real street fight, you don't turn your back on an opponent and hold your ears, put your face to the mat. So the only thing you could strike is behind your head, right? In a real fight, I'm pulling my sidearm in a real fight. I'm not even doing jiu-jitsu. But I was playing the game. The kid I fought, he was an absolute monster. I knew he had a good head kick. I fought at 170, right? And so I'm like 5'8". So all the guys that were fighting at 170 were like 6 foot plus, absolute beasts. And this kid was like 6'2", and I knew the head kick was coming. You could see it. It's online. It's on YouTube. And he threw the head kick, and I put my hand up to cover. And even though I covered the kick, he hit me with so much force to knock me on my ass. And so I'm like, okay, this is where I want to be anyways. And, I'm doing my whole, guard thing. And he's throwing punches from the top, and I was trying to lace for heel hook. And when I did, I was like, this ain't working. So I rolled over and turtled up and covered here. And he just went like 5 times to the back of the head, knocked me out. I woke up to you won. And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't know. He was obviously salty about it. But I'm like, hey, man, if you had more control, you probably would have won that fight. But, the rules are in place for a reason to keep people safe. And it's a sport, right? So people that don't understand MMA, don't understand cage fighting, it's a sport, and at the end of the day, when both fighters are out of the cage, it's not 90% of the time there's respect, right? You see a hug or a handshake or whatever, we're just in there trying to do our thing and trying to show out. For me, it wasn't, like you said, too old to, go to the UFC. But for me, it was like, I need to be in that situation where it's fight or flight, and I need to see what I'm made of. Like, I need to test myself and make sure that if I have to keep my family safe, I know what I'm doing. I'm comfortable in chaos. I want to be in chaos. I want to get punched. I want to know what that feels like. Because if my first time getting punched is in a life or death situation, probably not going to win that. I'm probably not going to be on the better side of that outcome. So for me, it was a test. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to prove I'm the toughest guy in the division or the world. Like it was always about myself. It was never about my opponent or who I faced. As a matter of fact, most of my opponents I'm friends with. Like, I get along with them. Some of them have come and trained at my school, and I've coached them. Right. So, yeah, it's everybody gets in for different reasons. But for me, it was all for me. It had nothing to do with anything else.
Yeah. And we kind of implement that in our, the way we test for our next rank, but also we kind of do that in class where we deal with striking, because yeah, like you said, if that's something you're not used to, the first thing you want to do is you want to curl up and try to hide away from it. But like you said, if you're in a street fight, you curling up like this is not going to stop this person from trying to stomp your head in.
Right.
So yeah, we get thrown on boxing gloves, and they the person who got on gloves, they can strike, they can throw punches, they can throw kicks, and the other person, all they had is their jiu-jitsu. Work to get a better, get them to the ground, submit them, or get them to the ground to run away. Whatever you got to do to to be able to fight another day, that's what you do. But yeah, because you read the stories online, like a guy getting knocked out of the bar. You find out he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and people like, oh, why did he use his jiu-jitsu? Like, because he's not used to getting punched in the face.
Yeah, that's part of it. And if you've ever been to any bars in the Boston area, everything's very close quarters. It's not like you can pull guard, and you wouldn't pull guard anyways. But it's not like you're going to be able to use jiu-jitsu and to its fullest extent, right? When you're on a mat, you have space, you're moving around, right? If you're jammed up against a bar table, like or a high bar, and some guys like in your face, not a lot of jiu-jitsu you can do from there, right? So I mean,
right.
What are you gonna do? Arm drag to head an arm triangle? What are you gonna do? Go for Kimura? Like some moves in jiu-jitsu shouldn't be done in the street. I don't
right.
Or if they should be, like, I mean, we train. I've trained, plenty of law enforcement officers, and I was talking to one of my friends who not at the time, but at the time he was the SWAT captain, right? So he lived across the street. He came by the school, and he's like, hey Dave, I need to bring in some of my my officers here. Because they're smaller in stature and they're getting sent out in the worst times of the night, and they're getting overpowered by bigger attackers, bigger perpetrators. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, so bring them in. And he said, what? And he goes, what would you do if I pulled a knife and did this, right? And I said, well, let me flip it. What were they teaching you to do? So I had the knife, I had the trainer knife. And he said, oh, well, we're going to wrap your arm, grab the arm and wrap. And I said, okay, so where you grab me, I'm stabbing you in the back of your kidney, right, your liver, right? I'm stabbing your liver. He goes, all right, well, how would you do it? And I showed him, the wide block on the wrist, right? You don't grab with your hand because you have this much space to screw up. If you miss this,
right,
you get stabbed. You block with this and then trap, then it'd be more forgiving. I said, personally, I would become a track star and run. Right? I'm not trying to play knife games. Right?
Right. I'm not John Wick.
You block, and I put him in a simple Kimura grip, right? Trap the hand, attacking hand, wrap it, and I put him on his ass, like face down, so fast. And he was like, we don't learn that at the academy, not that way, right? So in a street fight, at least in my school, we learn how to deal with identifying a firearm, how to isolate that area, right? But then also how to be aware of the secondary attacking hand, right? So certain moves we don't do in street fights. I don't recommend head and arm triangle, right? Because if you get head and arm triangles here and your free hand, you can't see the free hand, right? If you think about a head and arm triangle, you push the hand across, you have your setup. They have a free hand on the other side. They can be reaching for a knife. They could be reaching for a gun. They could be calling their friends. I mean, I don't know, whatever. But you can't. There's certain moves you should not be doing in a street fight. Absolutely not. Yeah. Because it weakens your mind side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's so, like, certain things, like you said, you can and cannot. Well, you should and should not do in a street fight, like with jiu-jitsu. But at the same time, the best thing that you can do is just avoid it. Just not engage at all. Run. Like, yeah. It's don't get me wrong. Obviously, it'll be cool if you get that highlight reel of, like, you subdued a guy and to the cops came, but that's only few and far between because, like you said, people got guns now, and it's a small chance that dude is by himself. And I don't want to run that risk, especially if I'm out with my family. So we just avoid that as much as possible.
It's not worth the lawsuits, right? Because the first thing that the poor attacker with his broken arm goes into the courtroom and says, he's a professional instructor, and he's a cage fighter. He's got a firearm. So it's not worth it. It's not worth the legal battle. Like, people, I play in basketball leagues, right? I'm a huge basketball nut. Guys try to start fight on, don't know me, try to start fights with me. And I'm just like, I think about like all I've worked for down the drain for some guy that probably, took an Uber here to play basketball. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to deal with it. Then he's living in my house. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to deal with that.
Right.
So if it comes down to life or death situation, at least in New Hampshire, it's got to be, you have to meet the force with equal or lesser force. Meaning, if you bring a knife and I shoot you in the head, I'm going to be screwed for that, right?
Right.
If you bring a knife and I bring a knife, I know it makes no sense. And I bring a knife and I stab you, well, it's equal force, right? It's equal or lesser force. Or if you have a baseball bat and I'm I have nothing in my hands and I, beat the crap out of you, I'm probably going to get away with that, right? It's self-defense. So I know it makes no sense. The rules nowadays are not set up for the good guys, or set up for the bad guys. And it's getting harder and harder to defend yourself properly. I mean, look at that guy in New York that held on the subway that held that rear naked choke for too long because he didn't understand the concept, or maybe he just got flashbacks or whatever. Like, he's screwed. Like, he's dealing with possible jail time for it, right? So
yeah,
training's important, but restraint and understanding how to be, like I said, it goes back to what I was saying, being comfortable in the chaos. You have to be comfortable in those situations and understand when enough is enough.
Yeah, got to, man. Got to. That's the only way. I mean, that's the only way. That's when those important jiu-jitsu lessons that's not necessarily taught on the mats, but definitely should be implemented. Like, we teach you guys self-defense, but at the same time, know when to, like you said, be comfortable in that chaos, control your emotions, and not let, someone being stupid, change your life forever. From you going out from a good time to, you talk to your kids behind, through a screen. No one wants to do that.
Nope.
Everyone wants to know that we're gonna, if you're gonna go out, keep yourself safe and everything, but just make sure you make it home.
Yep. And maybe I'm just old, probably because I'm old. I just try to avoid places where there could be trouble, right? So like, I don't go out at night past 10 o'clock if I can avoid it. And I mean, there's times you got to go out, your family parties, whatever, but I don't go wandering around at night. I try to avoid, convenience stores late at night, places that are more than likely going to get robbed or there's going to be a problem, right? But you just don't know, right? I mean,
just don't know.
Store was robbed on a Sunday morning at like 9 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
In one of the most highly armed, free states in the United States. I'm like, man, you got crazy cojones to do that. Half the people getting gassed probably had a sidearm on them. You know what I mean? So you just don't know, and you got to be prepared for everything. That's really what.
Yeah, gotcha. I hear you, man. All right, Dave. So we have a staple here at Talk Your Jits podcast. We ask everybody who come on the show, your top 3 people, man, past or present. Who would you love to get a chance to roll with? I mean, you threw out some big names earlier, but who would you like to get a chance to roll with?
Man, I would save this one for last. I would like to roll with Jocko because I know he'd break me and I wouldn't be able to roll with the other people. Definitely love to roll with Jocko. Damian Maia.
Yes.
Sure. One of the best MMA jiu-jitsu guys I've ever seen. Elio Gracie, the founder. The pioneer.
That's a solid list, man. Especially Jocko and Damian Maia. I would love to roll with Damian Maia. Yeah, he's been on my list for a while to roll with him and Brandon Ortega, Andre Galval. Mike Musumeci. Just a few people that comes to mind when I think about jiu-jitsu. But I mean, obviously you got to roll with the founders. You won't last long, but
Maybe when Elio was old, I would. You know what I mean?
I'll still be nervous.
That's true.
Like, he's 95, you can take him.
I didn't get to roll with BJ. I rolled with his brother JD. Regan. Okay.
Okay.
Younger brother. BJ's like, hey, I'm gonna watch you roll with my brother, and I'll critique you. So as much I got to train with BJ, I didn't get to roll with him. His brother was phenomenal. He just got back from surfing. We had a private. He was late. He's like, oh man, the waves are big. You know, it was really cool. But yeah, I would have loved to roll with him, BJ too. BJ would have been a good, fun roll.
Yeah, that'd have been nice. Well, man, yeah, that's it, man. Unless you got any more questions for me, fire away. If not, man, if you got anything coming up, man, you want to let the people know. Shout out to your school and everything else, man. The floor is all yours.
Yeah, I got one question for you, and then I'll wrap up. So, because you're newly minted black belt, and I want to see if it's the same logic as mine. Do you ever look back on your belts and go, man, that was such a grind at that belt level? Like I have my own, but do you ever look back at your journey and go, you reminisce about like your hardest belt and be like, man, I remember all the blood, sweat, and tears I put in to get to that belt. And do you do that? And what belt was it?
Purple.
Me too.
Purple belt. Purple belt was 5 bar, like by far the worst belt as grind wise, because just got back from COVID. Was having marital issues. Life was just kicking me in the throat, man. Purple belt was just bad. But yeah, that had to be the toughest one, my purple belt.
Purple was toughest for me because it was the belt I was stuck at the longest. I did win worlds at purple belt, and so for me it was my most medaled belt, but it was also my most battle tested as far as the majority of my MMA fights were purple belt. I was constantly getting beat down by some of the savages at Brazilian Top Team Boston to get me ready for competition. So for me, when I look, and it's the most worn belt, like you look at it, it's all faded and tattered. And I'm just like, man, I look at that belt and I just go, man, that was a grind. Yeah. So thank you for that answer. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Upcoming stuff. I'll close real quick. Thank you for having me on the show, Lamar. It's awesome. I haven't been on a podcast in a little bit. If anybody's interested in the Plastow area or surrounding Southern New Hampshire area and learning a little bit more about our school, our website is Spero, SPERO MMA.com or BTTplastow.com. We're on Facebook and Instagram. You can find us there. And anybody that doesn't involve themselves with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or is at another school and wants to get some rolls in, feel free to come down and cross-train with us. We're always open to cross-train with other schools. We have no issues there. I don't get involved in the politics, but thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on, Lamar.
No problem, man. I wish you the best, man, and everything that's coming your way, dude. Great talking to you.
Appreciate you, man. Good luck with the podcast and everything on your journey.
Thank you. All right, man. That's the end of today's episode. I would like to thank Dave one more time for coming on and blessing us with his jiu-jitsu knowledge. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please go and follow our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube page to stay updated on all future episodes. This has been Talk Your Jits podcast. Keep rolling, keep grinding, and remember, long live jiu-jitsu. Have a great day.